"You don't belong here." That's what he said, right after slapping her across the face. Not quietly, not by accident, loud, deliberate. In front of a dozen first-class passengers, Derek Lawson, a uniformed flight attendant for Pinnacle Airlines, raised his hand and struck a black woman who was calmly adjusting her seatbelt. Then he sneered down at her like she was less than human. "You people always think you're entitled." And here's the kicker. Within 10 minutes, that very same woman would fire him on the spot. You read that right. Because the woman he slapped, that was Vanessa Carter, CEO of Pinnacle Airlines and one of its largest shareholders. And everything that happened, every second of Derek's arrogance, Amanda's mockery, Ethan's threats, Richard's smirk, was caught on video and broadcast across TikTok and Twitter, turning what started as a regular Tuesday flight into a nationwide scandal. But before we get into the whole jaw-dropping chain of events, let me ask you something real quick. Where are you watching from today? Drop it in the comments. We always love seeing how far our stories travel. And hey, if you believe in standing up against injustice, subscribe to the channel. We bring you stories like this every week. And don't forget to tap that like button. It helps get stories like this in front of people who need to hear them. Now, buckle up. Because what happened to Vanessa Carter might be the most shocking 10 minutes ever caught on a commercial flight. June 24th, 3:08 p.m., Dallas-Fort Worth International Airport. Vanessa Carter, 42, dressed in a tailored charcoal blazer, walked calmly toward her first-class seat on Pinnacle Flight 2937, bound for Los Angeles. She wasn't traveling with bodyguards, or media, or even a briefcase full of contracts. Just her assistant, Olivia Tate, a single carry-on bag, and the quiet dignity of a woman who had built her career from the ground up. Born and raised in Dallas, Vanessa knew this airport like the back of her hand, but none of that mattered when Derek Lawson, 38, Ohio-born, and full of attitude, decided that today he was going to play gatekeeper. "Ma'am," he said sharply, "you need to fix that seatbelt now." Vanessa looked up, confused, and began adjusting the strap. But before she could even speak, Richard Ward, a smug, middle-aged man in seat 1B, leaned over and muttered loud enough for everyone to hear. "You don't belong in first class." Derek didn't correct him. In fact, he seemed to agree. What happened next was so fast and so deliberate that passengers later said they didn't have time to intervene. Derek reached forward, hand open, and slapped Vanessa Carter across her cheek. The sound cracked through the cabin. Olivia gasped. Sophie Grant, a young flight attendant near the galley, froze in horror. "What the hell?" she shouted. Derek didn't even flinch. "She's being defiant," he said coldly. Amanda Pierce, 29, another attendant, scoffed from behind. "Act like you deserve to be here," a few rows back. Lauren Hayes, 36, a marketing manager from Minnesota, stood up, her voice trembling with rage. "She's a passenger. What are you doing?" James Nolan, a 44-year-old father from North Carolina, added, "This is unfair. Man, you can't do that." Olivia stepped forward. "You're crossing a line. Right now." But Derek wasn't done. "Move to economy," he ordered, now pointing directly at Vanessa's seat. Amanda stepped into the aisle to block her path. Arms crossed. "You're out of place here." And that's when Ethan Cole entered the scene. 34 years old, security agent for the airline, with a heavy-set frame and an aggressive stance. "Get in line," he growled, "or get off the plane." Vanessa stayed seated, silent, calm, but her eyes said everything. She reached slowly into her purse and pulled out a small black wallet. Inside it, her Pinnacle shareholder ID. She held it up for Derek to see. "I'm a 20% owner of this airline," she said, firm but composed. "I know my rights." Derek snorted. "This looks fake." Amanda laughed out loud. She probably printed that at home. Olivia raised her phone and started recording. "You're making a huge mistake," she warned. "You're going viral." Sophie joined in. "This is outrageous," she said, stepping closer to Vanessa. "You don't treat passengers like this." Lauren nodded. "This is racism. Period," James added. "You're embarrassing yourselves." Ethan stared at Olivia's phone and muttered, "Put that away before you make it worse." "It's already worse," Olivia said, not backing down. Then Derek did something unthinkable. He walked over to the gate terminal, tapped a few keys, and voided Vanessa's boarding pass. "There's a duplicate error on this seat," he said loudly, glancing at Amanda, who smirked. "She's not on the manifest anymore." "That's a lie," Vanessa said, standing now. "You're tampering with my record." Amanda leaned into Derek and whispered, but not quietly enough. Sophie, still filming, caught every word. "She's not elite," Amanda said. "She doesn't belong up here with us." Vanessa turned, looking directly into Sophie's camera. "You're ruining my reputation," she said. "You're humiliating me on my own airline." "Not anymore," Sophie replied. "We're not letting this slide." The passengers began murmuring, some in disbelief, others filming too. "This is discrimination," Lauren said, "and it's happening in broad daylight." James nodded. "Not on my watch." Then Vanessa locked eyes with Derek and said it clearly, calmly, and without blinking. "You're going to regret this, Derek Lawson." He laughed, dismissively. "Sure I will." Amanda shook her head. "You're just making a scene." Ethan took a step forward, arms crossed. "We're not playing games. Move to economy, or we'll have you escorted off." Olivia looked at Sophie. "Keep going. Don't stop recording." And Sophie didn't. In the galley. She whispered into her phone. "He voided her pass. They're targeting her for being black. That's the only reason. You can feel it." And she uploaded her first video to TikTok. Caption: "Flight attendant slaps black woman in first class." Views: 1,000 in under an hour. Comments: "This is totally horrific. That's blatant racism. Fire him, now." And that was just the beginning. Derek Lawson gripped the intercom with one hand like it gave him power and spoke into it coldly. "Ladies and gentlemen, this flight is currently delayed due to a disruptive passenger in first class." His voice echoed through the cabin, clear, calculated, and meant to shame. Heads turned, eyes widened, and phones lifted. But Vanessa Carter didn't move. She sat perfectly still, her posture proud, her breath even, one hand gently resting on the armrest and the other on her lap. The sting from Derek's slap still lingered on her cheek, but she didn't raise a hand to it. Not now. Not in front of them. She had learned long ago never to give anyone the satisfaction of seeing her flinch. And as she sat there, in silence, something old stirred in her chest, a memory she hadn't revisited in years, but one that lived just under the surface, waiting for a moment like this to remind her why she became the woman she was. She was 32 the first time it happened. A different flight, a different city, but the same cold assumptions. She had just won a regional leadership award, dressed in a navy blue pantsuit, full of pride, boarding a plane home from Chicago. Her ticket said 2A, first class, but when she handed it to the flight attendant, the woman paused, looked her up and down, and asked, "Are you sure this is your seat?" A man in 2C chuckled and muttered, "She probably meant coach." The attendant smiled awkwardly, but checked her ID again. No apology, just suspicion. Vanessa didn't argue. She took her seat, gripped the armrest tightly, and stared out the window the whole flight. Burning inside, she didn't say a word, but in her heart, she made a vow. "One day, I'm going to sit in this seat, and no one will dare question it. In fact, I'll own the entire airline. And now, 12 years later, she did. Vanessa Carter, CEO of Pinnacle Airlines, 20% owner. Her name was on the executive charter, but none of that mattered to Derek Lawson, who had just labeled her a disruption. Amanda Pierce, his partner in condescension, strolled down the aisle with a smirk and knocked Vanessa's laptop bag to the floor. "Oops," she said, all fake sweetness. Derek laughed and added, "Cheap gear for someone who says she's elite?" Behind them, Ethan Cole crossed his arms, standing over Vanessa like she was some kind of threat. "You're causing problems," he said flatly. "Last chance to cooperate." That's when Sophie Grant stepped forward, her voice clear, her phone in her hand. "She's a valid passenger," she said firmly. "You're out of line." Lauren Hayes stood too. "This is harassment," she said. "And we're all watching," James Nolan added. "Stop targeting her. This is wrong." Olivia Tate, Vanessa's assistant, stood beside her boss, phone still recording. "You're going viral right now," she said. "Every second of this." Derek sneered. "Let them watch," Amanda scoffed. "She's making a scene." Ethan stepped closer. "You're going to move now, or I'll make you." Vanessa calmly opened her purse and pulled out her shareholder ID, the one that confirmed her position. She held it up. "You're making a very big mistake," she said, voice controlled but piercing. "This isn't just about me." Olivia was already posting the first video. "CEO assaulted on her own flight." And just like that, the numbers started ticking. 10,000 views, 50, 100. Sophie turned to Olivia. "Captain Reed needs to see this. I'm calling him now." "Already on it," Olivia replied, never looking up from her phone. Lauren shook her head in disbelief. "I've flown this airline for years, never seen anything like this." James nodded. "Pinnacle should be ashamed." Derek, growing flustered, tried to laugh it off. "She's lying. That badge is fake." Vanessa looked directly at him. "You're finished, Derek." "You don't scare me." He shot back. Amanda rolled her eyes. "She's just looking for attention." Then Olivia caught something. Derek leaned into Amanda and Ethan, whispering, "We remove non-elites all the time. That's protocol." Olivia's eyes widened. "Did you just say that?" she said, loud enough for passengers nearby to hear. "You're targeting people based on who you think they are?" Sophie caught it too. "Say that again. I dare you." Phones rose higher. Passengers murmured, gasped, pressed record. "You heard it," Lauren said. "He just admitted it." James looked around. "It's happening, and we're witnesses." Olivia uploaded the clip. Caption, "We remove non-elites. Hashtag bias in the sky." In 5 minutes. The tweet crossed 100,000 views. Comments exploded. "Fire them." This is 2025? This is exactly why representation matters. Sophie leaned toward Vanessa. "Captain Michael is coming now. We've got your back." Derek froze. "You what?" "He's the captain." Olivia said, "The real authority here, not you." Vanessa said nothing. She just adjusted her seatbelt, back straight, eyes clear. The power in her presence was undeniable. All around her, passengers were no longer bystanders. They were allies. "You're not alone," Lauren whispered. James added, "They picked the wrong woman." Vanessa took a quiet breath. She remembered that flight 12 years ago. The silence, the shame, the way she looked out the window and swallowed her voice. But not today. Today. She had the voice, the title, the cameras, the courage. She wasn't leaving. She was about to take back her seat and everything they tried to take from her. The cabin felt like it had stopped breathing. Derek Lawson stood stiffly near the galley, his arms folded and jaw tight, but his confidence was starting to waver. It showed in the way his eyes darted between phones recording him and the angry stares of passengers who were no longer silent. Ethan Cole moved to the aisle, shoulders squared, like he was preparing for a takedown. But even he looked unsure now. Amanda Pierce hovered near the curtain to business class, her lips pressed into a thin line, trying to stay out of the direct line of fire. Vanessa Carter, still seated in 1A, was calm, deadly calm. She hadn't raised her voice once. She didn't need to. The room was listening, and the world outside was watching. Then, as if the moment couldn't grow heavier, Michael Reed's voice crackled over the crew radio, audible to those nearby. "I heard what he said." The captain's voice came through. "That's not our policy. I'm coming up there right now." Derek's face twitched. Olivia, still recording, caught every second of it. Vanessa sat a little taller, and then Ethan did something no one expected. He reached out and placed a hand on Vanessa's shoulder, not gently, not respectfully. It was a command masked as guidance. "Come with me," he said. "You're being relocated to coach." Vanessa turned slowly, looking first at his hand, then at his face. "Take your hand off me," she said. Calm as ever. The plane, still motionless on the ground, suddenly felt as if it were flying through a storm. Sophie Grant gasped. "You don't touch her." Lauren Hayes stood up again. "This is racial targeting. You all see this, right?" James Nolan added. "It's on video, every second. Don't lay another finger on her." Amanda stepped forward to back Ethan, but Sophie Grant blocked her path. "Don't," she said firmly. "Just don't." Vanessa remained still. Olivia was already typing. "Security just put hands on Pinnacle's CEO." She posted it in real time. In seconds. The tweet was spreading. Hashtags trended. Journalists began asking for permission to use the footage. Sophie's TikTok upload from earlier now had over 2,000 views and counting. "Crew attacks black woman on her plane," the caption read. Comments poured in. "Boycott Pinnacle now. She's about to win this. They're done." But Vanessa wasn't focused on her phone. She was watching Derek. And Derek, who had once been loud, condescending, smug, was starting to lose the audience. He knew it. He clenched his jaw and blurted, "Get her out of first class. She doesn't belong here." Vanessa stood, not flinching, not flustered. Her voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. "Say that again," she said. "To my face." Derek hesitated, and Amanda stepped in for him. "You're a nobody," she snapped. "You think a badge makes you powerful?" Ethan barked. "Move now, or I'll move you." Vanessa's chin lifted slightly. "Try it." The words were soft, but they hit like a hammer. Lauren Hayes pointed. "That's enough," she yelled. "Stop it now." James Nolan raised his voice. "Respect her. She's not going anywhere." All around the cabin, passengers were rising, filming, stepping into the aisle. It was no longer just Vanessa versus the crew. It was now a passenger revolt, a line in the sand. And then, just as Derek raised his hand again, maybe to signal security, maybe out of sheer frustration, the curtain parted. Captain Michael Reed stepped into the first-class cabin. The room fell into stunned silence. The tension snapped like a rubber band. Michael, 52, tall and seasoned with gray at his temples, scanned the room slowly. His eyes landed on Derek first, then Amanda, then Ethan. He didn't speak right away. He didn't need to. His presence was a verdict in itself. Olivia stepped forward. "Captain," she said, steady but shaken. "They assaulted Vanessa Carter. They humiliated her. And they didn't believe she's the CEO." Michael's eyes shifted to Vanessa. "Ms. Carter," he said with a respectful nod. "Are you all right?" "I will be," she said. "Once this crew is off my aircraft?" Derek scoffed. "This is ridiculous. She's lying. She flashed a fake ID and..." Michael held up a hand, silencing him. I heard your voice on the crew channel. Derek, you said you vet passengers for prestige. You said she didn't look elite. That alone is grounds for termination. Passengers gasped. Amanda took a step back. Ethan dropped his arms. Sophie nodded. We all heard it too. Michael turned to the cabin. Ladies and gentlemen, please remain calm. We're going to make this right. Then he addressed the crew. Derek Lawson, Amanda Pierce, Ethan Cole, you're relieved of duty. You'll be escorted off the aircraft immediately. Derek's face drained of color. You can't do this, Amanda protested. You're ruining everything. Ethan just shook his head. This is going to blow up. Michael looked back at Vanessa. You own 20% of this company, ma'am, and today, you own the truth. Vanessa met his eyes. Thank you for stepping in. Now kindly remove them. Olivia turned to the passengers. You heard it. Folks, the captain just fired the crew for bias and assault. Phones captured every word, every motion. TikTok lit up with, Captain fires crew who attacked CEO. The video hit 1 million views before the plane even left the tarmac. Derek, Amanda, and Ethan were escorted out under a quiet storm of camera flashes, angry whispers, and cold silence. Passengers clapped, not wildly, but with relief. Vanessa exhaled, not in victory, but in justice. She didn't smile. She didn't gloat. She simply sat down, stronger than before. No longer the woman who swallowed her pain at 32. She had reclaimed that moment, tenfold. And this time, the world was listening. Derek Lawson's control was crumbling by the second, and he knew it. His voice rose now, sharp and frantic, as he turned to Amanda and Ethan and barked, Get her out of here! I don't care how! Just do it! Amanda hesitated, her hands trembling slightly. But Ethan reached for Vanessa's boarding pass and tore it in half with one swift motion, tossing the pieces at her feet like garbage. You're done here, he muttered, trying to sound strong, but his voice cracked. The cabin gasped in unison. Sophie Grant let out a sharp, Hey! And stepped in front of Vanessa, planting herself between Ethan and the row of seats like a shield. You don't get to treat people like this, she said. Not anymore. Lauren Hayes stood up again, this time with fire in her voice. She's staying right where she is, and if anyone's getting off this plane, it's the three of you. James Nolan rose next, his voice booming across the cabin. You just ripped her pass in half. That's vandalism, and it's being filmed. He gestured to the sea of phones now aimed at Derek and Ethan. Olivia Tate, calm and fierce, spoke into her phone as she posted the footage. Captain's coming. People need to see this. You're witnessing something historic. Derek turned toward the cockpit, then back to the aisle like a cornered man. This is protocol, he shouted. We're enforcing policy. Vanessa stood now, not flustered, not afraid. She looked directly at Derek and said, If this is your protocol, then your entire system is broken. Derek shook his head wildly. You people always play the victim, he muttered. And that was it, the final straw. The air snapped like a stretched cord. Olivia shouted. Say that again for the camera, Sophie yelled. You just showed everyone who you are. Lauren turned to the rows behind her. If you support Vanessa, speak up now. And they did. Row after row, people called out, We support her! This is unacceptable. We want justice. Derek took a step back, eyes darting around, clearly rattled now. Amanda looked pale, her arms crossed tightly as if trying to hold herself together. Ethan remained quiet, but the twitch in his jaw gave him away. Olivia turned to Vanessa. Is Captain Reed coming? Vanessa nodded, her voice calm. He's on his way. And then, as if summoned by that very line, the curtain at the front parted, and Captain Michael Reed stepped into the cabin once more. This time not just as a pilot, but as witness, as judge, and as executive authority. The passengers fell silent. He carried himself with the weight of someone who understood the moment. He turned first to Derek. "I've already relieved you," he said quietly. "Do you understand that?" Derek opened his mouth but said nothing. Michael looked to Amanda and Ethan. "You too. Step aside." But before they could move, Olivia stepped forward, eyes burning. "Captain," she said, "before you go any further, the passengers deserve to know who she is." Michael nodded. "You're right." He turned to the entire first-class cabin and then to the whole plane. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, voice strong and clear, "you are witnessing the mistreatment and harassment of Pinnacle Airlines' Chief Executive Officer. Vanessa Carter is not only a first-class passenger, she is a 20% owner of this airline. She is my boss. She is your boss. And she was just assaulted and publicly humiliated by members of her own crew." The cabin exploded in stunned gasps. Amanda stepped back like she'd been slapped herself. Derek turned gray. Ethan looked down at the floor. Phones caught every reaction. One woman in row 2 whispered, "She's the CEO?" Another man near the window muttered, "Oh my God!" Vanessa didn't say a word. She didn't have to. Her silence was thunderous. Michael continued, "Effective immediately, all 3 crew members are being permanently removed from this flight and placed under internal investigation." Then he turned to Vanessa and said, with deliberate respect, "Ms. Carter, would you like to deliver your own statement?" Vanessa stepped forward. Her voice was soft, steady, and filled with a gravity that quieted the room like prayer. "For years, I've watched people like me get questioned, dismissed, devalued. I've been told I didn't belong. I've been asked to prove myself, over and over, even when I earned my place. Today, I didn't just earn this seat. I bought the seat. I own it. And still, I was treated like I was invisible." Her eyes swept across the cabin. "But I am not invisible. I am not a fluke. I am not going anywhere. And if this airline stands for dignity, fairness, and progress, then let this moment be the start of something better." The cabin erupted in applause, not polite, but roaring. Derek tried to protest one last time. "This isn't real. This is all staged," Amanda cried. "You've ruined everything." Ethan slumped into the jump seat, defeated. Olivia whispered, "We're trending on every platform." And then came the twist no one saw coming. Sophie Grant, still holding her phone, stepped forward and said, "I heard something earlier." She looked at Amanda. "Tell them what you told me." Amanda's face twisted with panic. I didn't mean it," she said, her voice cracking. "Derek told us to target people who didn't look elite. He said minorities were PR risks. He made us do it." Vanessa blinked slowly. Once. "You just confessed to a discriminatory practice, under company policy?" Amanda nodded, tears rising now. "I didn't want to, but I needed the job." The passengers gasped again. Sophie turned her camera toward Derek. "Anything you want to add?" Derek looked straight into the lens, opened his mouth, and then turned away. Silent. Broken. Captain Reed raised a hand. "I'll be filing a full report, and Vanessa, your words will be on the record. This is a turning point," as Derek, Amanda, and Ethan were escorted to the jet bridge. A wave of relief and vindication swept over the passengers. Someone started clapping, then another, then everyone. Vanessa didn't bow, didn't smile. She just turned toward Olivia and Sophie and whispered, "We're not done yet. The real change starts now." There was a kind of hush in the cabin now, not silent, but reverent. The kind of quiet that comes just before something historic is said. Vanessa Carter stood near the front, her presence no longer just visible, but undeniable. The weight of what had happened in the past 10 minutes was still hanging in the air. Derek's slap, Amanda's sneer, Ethan's looming threats. The disbelief of passengers turned into support. And now, the truth unveiled. The woman they had tried to humiliate was, in fact, their boss, their superior, their owner, and she was done being patient. Captain Michael Reed stood beside her, arms crossed, face unreadable but firm. "Ms. Carter," he said respectfully, "you have the floor." Vanessa stepped forward, not with a raised voice, but with a quiet command that made every head lift. "As Chief Executive Officer of Pinnacle Airlines," she began, "and as someone who holds direct ownership in this company, I am exercising full authority, right now, on this flight." Her eyes locked on Derek first. "Derek Lawson, your employment with this airline is terminated, effective immediately." She turned to Amanda. "Amanda Pierce, you are also terminated." Finally, she faced Ethan Cole. "And Ethan, your position as security liaison is officially revoked." Gasps filled the cabin. Gasps of justice, not shock. Derek raised a hand in protest. "You can't do this," he barked. "This is fake. This isn't how protocol works," Vanessa replied calmly. "It is when the CEO is on board and has been assaulted, harassed, and targeted with public malice." Amanda's face turned a deep shade of red. "You've ruined everything," she spat. Ethan tried to speak, but his voice cracked under pressure. "You caused this," he muttered. "You and your camera circus." Olivia Tate, still recording, responded dryly. "No, sir. You did. And now the entire internet knows it." From the back of the cabin, Lauren Hayes stood and began to clap, one pair of hands. Then James Nolan joined in. Then the entire first-class section followed. A slow-building applause that wasn't about performance. It was about power reclaimed. Vanessa turned slightly, scanning the room, then looked back at Sophie Grant. "Sophie," she said, "you've shown integrity and courage. As of today, you're being promoted to senior flight attendant. HR will formalize it, but consider this a field promotion." Sophie's hand went to her chest. "Thank you," she whispered, blinking quickly. I didn't do it for a promotion." "I know," Vanessa said. "That's exactly why you deserve one," Captain Reed added. "You've kept order, documented the truth, and shown moral clarity. That's the kind of crew we need." Then Vanessa turned back to the disgraced trio. "Security is on its way to escort you off the aircraft. You're to leave now. Do not speak to passengers. Do not touch another employee." Derek's hands balled into fists. "This is going to court," he growled. "You're going to regret this." Vanessa stepped forward. "I've spent my entire career preparing for men like you to say that, and I'm not afraid." That's when Amanda Pierce cracked. She blurted out, "He told us to do it." Her voice wavered. "Derek said to watch people who didn't look like they belonged. He said to manage the optics. That's why we questioned her. That's why we treated her that way." A shocked silence took over. Vanessa didn't blink. "So you admit there was bias in how you handled passengers?" Amanda nodded slowly, voice trembling. "Yes. I'm sorry. I was scared to lose my job." "You lost something more important," Vanessa said. "Your integrity." Ethan turned to Amanda. "Why would you say that now?" he hissed. "You just took us all down." Sophie filmed it all. Olivia was already uploading. Caption: "Crew admits targeting passengers based on race. CEO fires all on the spot." Derek lunged forward suddenly, trying to knock Sophie's phone from her hand. But James Nolan stepped in and blocked him. "Don't even try it," James said. "You're already done." Captain Reed stepped between them. "Enough." His voice was final. "Derek, Amanda, Ethan, exit the cabin, now." Vanessa stepped aside as they passed. Amanda's eyes were wet, but empty. Ethan said nothing. Derek walked by stiffly, but just before stepping through the curtain, he turned back and said, You're a fraud in a suit. Vanessa didn't flinch. You're unemployed. The cabin clapped again, this time louder. Olivia leaned over to whisper. We just hit 1.5 million views on TikTok. The video's everywhere. Vanessa exhaled slowly, then looked toward the rear of the plane. Let's finish what we started. At that moment, a new attendant stepped onto the aircraft. Emily Stone, summoned from standby. She carried herself with quiet grace and professionalism, followed by Flight Supervisor Mark Davis. We're here to replace the outgoing crew, Mark said. Vanessa nodded. Good. Let's restore order. As the dismissed trio were escorted off the aircraft through the jet bridge, passengers began chanting softly, Justice! Justice! Lauren led it. James followed. Sophie joined in. It wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. It was steady, resolute. Olivia turned her camera back to Vanessa. Any final word? Vanessa looked directly into the lens and said, This is just the beginning. No passenger should be treated like they don't belong. Not ever again. Not on my airline. And that was the line that went viral. Again. Sophie posted the final video. CEO fires crew live after being slapped in first class. Within an hour, it crossed 1 million views, and comments came pouring in. She's a queen. Justice delivered. This is leadership. Derek Lawson's name began trending nationwide. News outlets started requesting interviews. Vanessa Carter didn't celebrate. She simply returned to her seat, now flanked by passengers who respected her and staff who knew the true meaning of professionalism. She glanced at her watch. Only 38 minutes had passed since she boarded, but everything had changed. With Derek, Amanda, and Ethan now off the aircraft and the cabin doors closed behind them. A strange calm settled over the plane. Not silence, but a new kind of stillness. The kind that follows a storm when you realize the damage has passed and clarity is finally rising. Vanessa Carter stood near the galley, shoulders relaxed, her voice no longer defensive but directive. She looked to the new attendant, Emily Stone, and the supervisor, Mark Davis, both now in position to take over the flight. Thank you for stepping in, she said. This aircraft and everyone on board deserve to be treated with dignity. Emily nodded. We're honored to be here. Ms. Carter, Mark added. We'll ensure a professional reset of this flight. Vanessa turned to Sophie Grant, who still held her phone but had stopped recording now that the immediate threat was gone. You did something brave today, Vanessa said, and it wasn't just for me. It was for everyone watching who's ever felt powerless in a place they had every right to be. Sophie's eyes welled slightly. Thank you, ma'am. I just knew it wasn't right. That's what leadership looks like, Vanessa replied. It's not about the title. It's about knowing when to stand up. Olivia Tate, standing beside her, refreshed her phone. The clip of you firing them hit 2 million views in under an hour. Twitter's exploding. Hashtag CEO Justice is trending at #2 nationwide. Across the cabin, Lauren Hayes looked up from her seat and called gently. You made history today, James Nolan added. You reminded us what accountability looks like. Vanessa gave a quiet nod, then walked slowly back to seat 1A, the very seat she had nearly been forced out of. She sat down, her blazer still straight, her badge still tucked safely in her purse. And this time, she buckled her seatbelt not with defiance, but with finality. But the story wasn't finished. Not yet. Just as the crew was preparing for final checks, Sophie stepped forward one last time. Ms. Carter, she said quietly, I need to tell you something. Vanessa looked up, attentive. Sophie glanced back toward the curtain and lowered her voice. There's a regional supervisor, Roger Phelps. He trains new flight crews in our Dallas hub. He's the one who pushed the whole elite image idea. He told Derek and others that the right look mattered. He used that term over and over, the right look. Vanessa's expression didn't change, but her tone cooled. Did he define what that meant? Not in front of HR, but off record? He made it clear. Black passengers, Latino families, people who didn't dress a certain way, they were flagged. Olivia let out a slow breath. This is deeper than one crew. Vanessa nodded. It usually is. She turned to Mark Davis, the supervisor. I want a full audit launched on all training content, protocols, and personnel evaluations in Dallas. If there's a culture problem, we address it, not quietly, not defensively, transparently. Mark nodded. Yes, ma'am. I'll escalate this to the board. Olivia was already typing. Systemic bias exposed at Pinnacle Hub. CEO orders immediate audit. This is what accountability looks like. That tweet flew. Within minutes, major journalists picked it up. Comments like, she's cleaning house. Finally, a leader who acts. And, this is how you fix a broken system, flooded social media. Meanwhile, Emily Stone and the replacement crew began offering water, quietly resetting the flight's energy. Passengers were no longer tense. They were reflective. Some were tearful. Others simply nodded with quiet solidarity. Lauren leaned across the aisle. You know, I was nervous when I boarded. Flying always makes me uneasy. But today, I'm proud I was here. Vanessa smiled softly. So am I. Just as Emily passed by. Vanessa stopped her gently. Make sure everyone on this flight is offered full compensation for today's delay and disruption. I'll personally sign off on it. Absolutely, Emily said. We'll take care of them. Then Olivia leaned closer and said quietly, There's one more thing. Derek's staging a sit-in at the jet bridge. He's refusing to leave. Security says he's blocking the exit ramp. Vanessa didn't miss a beat. Is he being aggressive? No, Olivia said. Just dramatic. Sitting cross-legged with his badge in his lap, saying he's the victim. Vanessa exhaled through her nose. Then send security a message. Do not escalate. Escort him out calmly. I won't give him another viral moment to twist. Olivia nodded. Understood. But the moment didn't pass quietly. Several passengers near the front leaned toward the window and began filming the scene through the boarding gate glass. Derek, red-faced, arms folded, mouthing off to a supervisor while airport police approached. Videos began surfacing immediately. One tweet from Fly Truth read, Disgraced Pinnacle attendant stages sit-in after CEO fires him for bias. Another clip showed him being calmly walked away, muttering, This isn't over. In the cabin, James said what everyone was thinking. This is how some people react when they lose unearned power. Olivia posted again. He sat in protest of accountability. She stood for truth. There's the difference. Just as the engines began their slow rumble toward takeoff, Olivia received another ping on her screen. Ma'am, she said, eyes wide. An anonymous employee just leaked internal emails. From 3 years ago, they show corporate leadership ignored multiple complaints about bias in training. These complaints were marked non-priority for fear of negative optics. Vanessa didn't speak for a moment. Then she closed her eyes slowly and opened them with clarity. Prepare a statement. We're going public with it. No redactions. If we're going to lead, we lead in the open. Olivia was already typing. Sophie looked down the aisle. This isn't just a flight anymore. It's a reckoning. And then, as the wheels began to roll forward and the plane taxied toward the runway, Vanessa looked out the window, not just at the tarmac, but at the future she had just reshaped. She had come to fly quietly, alone. But instead, she had triggered reform, exposed hidden rot, and shown what it means to carry quiet power. She didn't need to raise her voice. She never had. Vanessa Carter had simply stood her ground, and the world had shifted around her. 3 months later. On a quiet September morning in Los Angeles, Vanessa Carter stood at the floor-to-ceiling window of her hotel suite, a soft robe draped over her shoulders, the city just beginning to stir below. She hadn't taken a real break in years. But this moment, watching the sunrise with a cup of black coffee in hand, finally felt earned. The chaos of that day in June was behind her, but its impact was everywhere. Pinnacle Airlines was no longer the same company. Since the flight, the board had convened multiple times, with her leadership, and the backing of passengers who had become advocates overnight. Vanessa led the most comprehensive civil rights audit in the company's history. Training programs were overhauled, biased supervisors were terminated, a new internal equity division was established, led in part by Sophie Grant, who was officially named Director of In-Flight Ethics and Conduct. Her promotion wasn't just symbolic, it was structural. From crew behavior to hiring standards, everything changed. As Vanessa scrolled through her morning updates, her assistant Olivia Tate leaned into the doorway, tablet in hand. 5 more press requests, one from PBS, another from NPR, and Good Morning America again. Vanessa smiled faintly. Put them on hold. Let the reforms speak before I do. Olivia nodded. You've made history. You know. We've made accountability, Vanessa replied. History just caught it on video. Across the room, framed on the wall, hung the viral headline from that day. Black CEO fires entire crew, mid-flight after assault, Pinnacle responds with sweeping reforms. Vanessa hadn't framed it for herself. The passengers had sent it to her, signatures included, with a card that read, "Thank you for not backing down. You didn't just defend yourself, you defended all of us." She kept that card in her planner, downstairs, in the corporate wing of the building. The quarterly board meeting was already underway. Sarah Collins and David Brooks, 2 longtime shareholders, had become strong allies. The board, once resistant to change, had now committed to long-term diversity and bias response initiatives. Vanessa entered the room quietly. The room stood, not out of obligation, but out of respect. Later that afternoon, after the meeting concluded, Vanessa strolled through LAX's private terminal. A few heads turned, but this time, the looks were different. No suspicion, no silent questioning, just nods of recognition. One gate agent, young and nervous, stepped up to her. "Thank you for what you did," she said. "I started working here because of you." Vanessa's smile was warm. "Then do it better than they did, every day." But the day wasn't finished. As she walked toward baggage claim, her steps slowed. Standing near Carousel 5 was a familiar face, Derek Lawson. He looked thinner, older, like someone who hadn't been sleeping. He didn't yell. He didn't plead. He simply stepped forward and said, "You ruined me." Vanessa studied him, then answered quietly, "No, you did that yourself. I just didn't let you get away with it." He looked like he wanted to say more, but the eyes around them, phones raised again, stopped him. Security approached. Vanessa raised a hand. "It's all right. He's already gone." Derek stepped aside. No apology, just silence. He turned and walked away. Vanessa didn't follow. Instead, she stepped into her car and rode in silence. That night, as the news replayed clips from the reform rollouts, Sophie Grant appeared on screen, announcing new policies for crew oversight and transparency. Lauren Hayes and James Nolan had both submitted written testimonies to the Department of Transportation, now included in a nationwide study on in-flight bias. Olivia, seated beside her in the suite, looked up from her laptop. "You really changed the airline," Vanessa responded softly. "We changed the standard as the sun set." painting the sky in soft gold. Vanessa stood by the window once more and whispered, "Pinnacle is for everyone now." And for the first time in a long while, she let herself smile, not the one for press, not the one for shareholders, but the kind you wear when you've reclaimed something sacred, dignity, belonging, home.